Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
And then I will just give you cues in the chat and
hmm.
you can begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. Welcome to Grue. Thank you so much for being a guest and coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So the first thing I want to start out asking you about the film is I see your mom actually played for the team
Yeah.
and how and they definitely knocked down so many doors. And how proud are you of your mom and of that team?
Oh, I mean, I don't think that there's a way to qualify or quantify how proud I am of them. I mean, it's something that I grew up with as being just part of the background of my life. And
Hmm.
now that I've sort of had the chance to live in this world for decades, it's really opened my eyes to how important that was, even though it was so just, part of the world to me at that time.
Oh yeah. And what inspired you to want to like make a film about the team and about how important women's sports was for that period of time?
Yeah, I think I always had it somewhere in the back of my mind that I wanted to make a film about this or to tell the story in some way. Um, but it really, when we started to work on it, there was really coming to a moment where I realized that a lot of these women were getting to a certain age and
Mm.
that, once I started researching, I realized that most of this history had not really been recorded in archives or on video or in newspapers. There was some articles, but very, very few. So really, the only surviving record of all of this was through the memories of the players themselves. So it was relatively urgent to capture those recollections before they faded away. And that was part of what motivated me to go for it at that time.
Nice. And wasn't this during a time like when women were just starting to get rights, the women's rights, like owning credit cards and actually like playing sports?
Yeah, the 1970s were actually a pretty positive time for advancements in women's rights. It's coming out of the civil rights movement in the 60s and into the 70s, women wanted a piece of the equality as well. And
Definitely.
so it comes through in a lot of ways. And you mentioned the credit card thing. And there's also, abortion rights were coming into place around that time as well. And Title IX is the biggest, most relevant piece of legislation that came about in 1972, which was part of a much larger law. And at first, it was just this one small, like almost a footnote in this very expansive piece of legislation. But people really fought hard to make
Mhm.
sure that little footnote would became enforceable in a way that was actually really beneficial to girls and women across the country.
Oh wow, okay, okay. And they were definitely part like the team, like they were definitely part of the first ever like all women's sports league, football league. And do you feel that they had a lot to prove because, of course the NFL and ran by men players, like do you think they had a lot to prove?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a David and Goliath kind of situation when it comes to the NFL. And, I don't think that the women really ever thought that they were going to compete with the NFL, partially because they really didn't have the playing experience that NFL players have, because NFL
Mm.
players start playing when they're children and they start getting trained from a very young age. And so those, physical memories are ingrained in them from a very young age of how to actually play this game. Whereas the women who played on the Hurricanes, they were starting when they were in their 20s. Some were in their teens, but most were in their 20s. And your body just doesn't learn as quickly at that age. So I don't think that they were of any delusions that they were going to overthrow the NFL with women's football. But they did all have the commonality that they always had loved football and always had wanted to play, and were never given the opportunity to do so. So once they did find that opportunity, they were getting there as quickly as they could and making it happen through a lot of difficulties and hardships, both in their personal lives and in running the team, which was very expensive and took a lot of time and energy.
Okay. And and for anyone who sees your film, like you definitely show how close they are as a team and of course as friends. And and you definitely created like that bond on the film and sharing them talking and I I just love how like you put everything together because you were saying like a lot of stuff wasn't known about them or about the league because there wasn't like a lot of records or clips or videos and you did a great job on putting everything together to show like the fans on what what these girls are and what they had to go through to get there.
Yeah. No, it was definitely a challenge. And we knew from the very beginning that we weren't going to have the amount of archival that we would have liked to have had. So
Yeah.
we knew that we weren't going to be able to lean into football footage to tell this football story. So I knew that it was going to be a love story from the very beginning, very much so about camaraderie and sisterhood. And we leaned into that from the very beginning. And so we knew that there was going to be a reunion at the end of the movie, in addition to the football highs and lows that were happening with the team. Because I think that ultimately that is what they take away from this experience. You know, it's not like they broke down the glass ceiling of football, which is arguably still not broken. But they really did form a bond with each other that many of them were not able to replicate in any other part of their lives. And it's a bond that they still hold to this day and will always remember.
Nice, nice. And what I love about them, about the team, is like their spirit and how they kept fighting because at that time they were they were teased and laughed and not taken seriously as like real sports stars. And they didn't like go about it and quit and say, oh, you know, I'm getting they don't want to see us. Let me just leave. Like they just kept fighting and fighting and fighting until they earned the respect of everybody. And how do you feel about like how strong like their fighting spirit was?
I mean, I think it's fantastic. And honestly, I am impressed that they were able to keep that up for as long as they did because
Hmm.
they were getting it pretty rough. Like the media would not take them seriously. You know, there's a story that's not in the film where the PR person for the team sent a press release to one of the local newscasters, and he never heard back. So when she followed up, he said, "Oh yeah, I threw that in the garbage." Um,
Oh my
and
God.
yeah, so it was pretty ugly. And then additionally, in their personal lives, they were facing criticism in their workplace. Like going to play football was not an acceptable reason for missing work. Or, you know, a lot of these women had blue collar jobs. And so if you injured yourself in football, and weren't able to perform the job that you were doing before, whereas a man might get some understanding for that, the women were not. So
Mm.
um, yeah, it was a lot that they had to go up against and a lot of risks that they were taking. And I'm honestly, you know, I'm surprised that they were able to do it for as long as they did because I'm not confident I would withstand that kind of antagonizing treatment.
Oh yeah, no, definitely for sure. Like that takes a lot. That says a lot about them as people and as a team.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, relentless.
And do you feel like because there are women's sports now, women's football. And do you think that it's gotten any better than from that period of time?
Um, yes and no. There's been a lot of improvement. There's a lot more women playing football today than there were back
Hmm.
then. And I think that there's still a certain amount of criticism about the fact that women want to play tackle. And there's just, no funding. The funding is basically still coming from players' pockets to
Oh,
get their teams running. Luckily, we are seeing a little bit of change in flag. So flag football is being promoted for girls in high schools across the country. The NFL is investing in girls flag football programs, or certain teams are. And
mhm.
so there is some progress being made. In tackle specifically, it's still the final frontier for women in sports. But I think that once we can, as a society, get over the mental hurdle that women shouldn't be playing football, then I think that there will be a lot of value that that aspect of sports brings to our civilization.
Definitely, yes. And this this th- this film definitely inspires a lot of women all over the world, and it just doesn't have to be like sports. Like it's a very strong message for women everywhere. Like the spirit of the team, the fighting spirit of the team. And what are you hoping that people that go to see the film pick up from it?
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's not necessarily, the message isn't that everyone needs to go out and play football. The message is that everyone should be given the opportunity to try the thing that might be the thing that makes them the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
So, you know, that can be anything. Like there's so many different fields in which women are minorities, and it's because they're not given
Mhm.
the opportunity to take the steps required to get to those places. And, the argument that we hear a lot is that, well, women just don't want to play football. But how can they even have known that if they've never been given the opportunity to try? So, and I think that that applies to so many different fields, not just football, not just sports, but it could be anything, any sort of academic field or arts or whatever you name it.
And now I'm going to ask you like a couple fun questions that don't have to do with the film, of course, but what kind of music do you like listening to? Like what's on your playlist?
Oh my gosh. What playlists? I'm so bad with music. Um, I guess I've been listening to Brandy Carlisle lately.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
which has been, giving me some comfort in the times that we're going through now.
Mhm,
Uh,
definitely.
but yeah, I'll put her on my list.
Okay, sweet. And what would be your go-to karaoke song if you were gonna do one?
Oh, so one of my favorites is Gypsies. I think it's called Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves
Oh,
by,
Cher?
yep, that's a good fun one for karaoke. And then I also do Elvis Suspicious Minds when I'm
Yeah.
getting really, really loose.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And the last couple questions I'll ask you is where can fans like keep up with the film and watch it and also follow you at?
Yeah. So you can keep up with us on our social media, which is on Instagram and Facebook at the Hurricanes, spelled Her. And we are currently streaming on both Amazon and Apple and anywhere else you can rent or buy a movie. So we would love for you to check it out and spread the word.
Awesome. Well, it was very nice meeting you. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this.
Yeah, thank you. This has been fun.
Thank you. All right.